Texas will hold a regular meeting at 5:30 p.m. on Tuesday, September the 4th, 2018. The council chambers at 801 West Holland in the city of Alpine, Texas, for the purpose of considering the attached agenda. This notice is posted pursuant to the Texas Open Meeting Act, Section 551.043, Texas Government Code. Public notice: the use of cellular phones are prohibited in the city council chambers during the meeting of the city council. Members of the audience will provide an opportunity to address the council during public hearings and during action items. Please speak into the microphone located at the podium and state your name and address. If you have a petition or other information pertaining to your subject, please present it to the city secretary. State law generally prohibits the council from discussing or taking any action on any issue not included on the agenda. But if appropriate, the council may schedule the topic for future discussion or refer the appropriate matter to staff. No personal attacks on council members or city staff will be allowed. The mayor may call a point of order to stop personal attacks. If an individual continues to personally attack an elected official or staff members in the meeting, they may be barred. Call this meeting to order. We'll have the invocation and the Reverend Josh, please. Excuse me. Right. Please turn off your cell phones if you can.
Let's find a posture of prayer and be open to God in this place. Gracious God, who lives and who moves among us, I give thanks for those who gather here tonight, who gather here as one city, ready to meet, to discuss, to hash out, and to serve in this place. And so in this time, make of us a city who listens to one another, who listens to the vulnerable, and who listens to you, O God, so that we might best take care of our school kids, of our hospital, of our struggling neighbors, and of our city. In this time, make of us a city who is insistent with hope and with faith, with hope and faith in our vision, in the dreams of our friends and neighbors, and in your guidance, so that we might be led not by fear or worry, but by that hope and faith. In this time, make of us a city which honors you by seeking always to do all the good that we can, to limit the harm done, so that we may all see the power of kindness and goodness in ourselves and in our world. We hope, we trust, and we pray in the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen.
Please. Pledge allegiance.
Of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I pledge allegiance to Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
City Secretary, do we have a quorum?
We do have a forum, and the notice was posted at 5 p.m. on August 30th, 2018.
Thank you. We have some presentations and some recognitions today. And first of all, wish a happy birthday to the following employees: Joe Rivera, Anthony Waters Jr., Ismael Hernandez, Alexandra Lopez, Ruben Hernandez Jr., Leroy Choker, Logan Calderon, Jennifer Stewart. And I have a proclamation. Is anybody from the city police here? Yeah, there he is. Okay, proclamation, National Night Out 2018. Whereas the National Association of Townwide is sponsoring a unique nationwide grant to cure drug, Violence Prevention Program on October 6th entitled National Night Out. And whereas the 32nd Annual National Night Out provides a unique opportunity for the city of Alpine to join forces with thousands of other communities across the country in promoting cooperative police community crime prevention efforts. And whereas the City Council, the City of Alpine plays a vital role in assisting us Alpine Police Department through joint crime, drug, and violence prevention efforts in the City of Alpine to support the National Night Out 2018 locally. And whereas it is essential for all citizens of the City of Alpine to be aware of the importance of crime prevention programs and impact that their participation can have on reducing crime, drugs, and violence in the City of Alpine. And whereas police community partnership, neighborhood safety, awareness, and cooperation are important themes of the National Night Out program. Now, therefore, I, Andres Ramos, Mayor of the City of Alpine, Texas, do hereby call upon all citizens of the City of Alpine to join the Alpine Police Department and the National Association of Town Watch in supporting the 32nd Annual Night Out, National Night Out on October 2nd, 2018. Further, let it be resolved that I, Andres Ramos, do hereby proclaim Tuesday, October 2nd, as National Night Out in the City of Alpine. In witness, I do hereby set my hand and this cause the seal of the City of Alpine to be affixed on the 21st. Thank you. Yes, sir. Thanks, sir. Yes, sir. Okay, City Mayor report, I have none. City Manager.
Mayor, I do not have a report. I do have a staff update from the Public Utilities Director, Chris Wright.
Okay, Mr. Wright.
Good afternoon, Council, Mayor. First off, I'd like to open with our report on our environmental services. This is from information from July and August of this month, this year. Our July numbers are not very solid numbers, so I did not include them in here because they were kind of shaky. So everything that you will see here is very accurate readings from the month of August. As you can see here, first up, our guests that we serve, City of Alpine residents and others from the surrounding areas. City of Alpine visitors was 323, and all of the others was 172 for a total of 479 visitors. If you go to the next page, the chart there, you'll see the majority of what we ingest into our recycling center is plastics, followed by mixed paper. Then you see the glassware, aluminum cans, tin, and then your bulky electronics, scrap metal are all pretty closely within a few percent. Of these, you'll notice that our glass is what we do process ourselves in-house, and we provide that crushed glass for our residents and citizens for artwork, things like that. I would like to announce that thanks to Bridgestone Proving Ground, Texas, the Howell Flanders Recycling Center will have a free tire disposal day on Saturday, September the 15th of this year, from 9 a.m. until 1 p.m. There's no limit on the number of tires the citizens can bring. However, the tires must be removed from the rims, and tires from businesses will not be accepted. First come, first served, one-time event.
So Chris, what does first come, first served mean? You got a limit, how many you're gonna take, you're gonna say we're done, or?
Yes, sir, there is a limit on how many they are accepting at this time.
They'll only take up to 12.
400.
So once we reach our 1,200 limit, then we'll have to wait till the next round when we get that opportunity.
Do you know what they're doing?
Sir,
Do you know what they're gonna do with them?
I do not, sir.
I can answer that. It's a program that I've been involved with for a long time. Bridgestone has their One Planet program, and they take the tires and they do recycle the tires into other products that Bridgestone utilizes. Sometimes they use them actually after putting around as part of their track.
Very cool.
And last note on environmental services, this report doesn't include information in regards to the landfill. It wasn't available when this report was submitted. I will have that in the next report, and that GDS has mentioned that their numbers, everything has reset as officially the first of this month. So we will be starting a fresh set of numbers, so I can set you some trends as well, so we can see how we're doing.
Christian, do we have enough people working out there?
At the,
Who's having this?
we still have one part-time opening available. Yes, sir.
Getting back to the tires, is Bridgestone going to be hauling away? So we're just accepting, but they will actually.
Their One Planet program will provide a community one free collection event per year. So a year from now, we'll be able to do another one. But they do them all over the country as part of their One Planet program.
And I believe we're just providing the facilities and then bringing all the equipment to it.
They're bringing in the trailer and the personnel to stock the trailer.
Just out of curiosity, Bridgestone, I'm sure will be benefited in somehow from the collection of tires. Did we get anything back from that?
A savings of about $8,000, which is what it would cost us to get rid of.
And get rid of the mosquito homes.
Any other questions on the environmental services? All right, then we'll move on to our gas utility department. I would like to start off and let everybody know as a reminder, our gas department does provide services to the city of Alpine and Fort Lewis residents. On July the 9th through the 13th, the gas department underwent an audit by the Railroad Commission of Texas. There were no violations. I sat in on the closing arguments, closing comment. On the closing comment, all work of that high marks they received from the auditors from the Railroad Commission. During the audit, one of the city's rectifiers was struck by lightning and is going to require extensive repairs. Some has been made. The event caused the city's gas line cathodic protection under the recommended voltage. It has had service workers retrieving daily readings of the cathodic protection to ensure that it is hold temporarily until replacement of the rectifier. I expect to act on that replacement beginning of the new.
Well, Chris, while you're flipping pages.
Yes, sir.
What did you just say?
The cathodic record is a voltage release in the case of lightning. It's basically it's a protective circuit for the gas system itself.
Got it.
Yes.
Thank you.
Like a pressure reducing valve for voltage.
Yeah, I'm with you. Yeah. So basically.
Pressure and voltage. And the gas department, the leak survey repairs, all leak survey repairs are complete today except for one grade 3 leak located on Plum Street. It's an ongoing project. Note, a grade 3 leak is required to be monitored every 6 months with a maximum of 3 years to repair. And according to the supervisor, Randy Guzman, that should be repaired in very short order.
What's a grade 3?
I'm sorry, ma'am?
What is a grade 3?
It means basically it's a leak that has to be monitored every 6 months, and they have a maximum of 3 years to have it fixed, and that's under the guidelines of the Railroad Commission of Texas. drip as opposed to a flood. So on the leak survey repairs, in the month of July, there was 2 made in Alpine, and in August, there was 1 in Fort Davis. Their leak investigates. In the month of July, there were 4 in Alpine, and in the month of August, there were 7 in Alpine. New services for the gas department in July, there were none, and in August, there was 1 in Alpine. The DIMP projects, the Gas Distribution Integrity Management Program, is used to assure pipeline integrity and further improve the safety of pipeline transportation of energy products. Basically, in layman's terms, the DIMP program is in place to make sure that the integrity of the lines in the ground is always being renewed, and they have a goal set each year that they have to reach to basically maintain these lines continuously being replaced. And for the record, the goals are in Alpine, they're required to replace up to 3,500 feet per year. And in Fort Davis, they're required to replace 800 feet per year. And as of right now, they are ahead of their target goal for this year. As of July, there was 0 mains replaced. And in August, there was 2 mains replaced in Alpine, and pretty much one main replacement is the equivalent of 600 feet from that target goal. The services, as far as length goes, that just depends on however long it is to reach the service and replacement, so they vary from each service in place. In July, there was 2 services replaced in Alpine and 1 service replaced in Fort Davis. In August, they have replaced 1 service in Alpine. And I hope to have more information for you next month as we move forward. Does anybody have any questions on the gas department? We'll move on to the last but very not least, the water utilities department. The water production, our groundwater production, is comprised of the production and distribution. The city of Alpine produces water from numerous wells and well fields. Once treated with chlorine, these waters are distributed to residents and commercial business in and around the city of Alpine. For the month of July, we produced 55.890 million gallons of drinking water. We had 2,751 active service connections. There was 5 water taps added and 11 water leaks addressed in the month of July. In August, our production of drinking water was 44.566 million gallons. There were 2,747 active service connections, no new water taps, and 7 water leaks addressed. Current and future ongoing projects are current and future easements and rights of way are being researched and analyzed for congruency and specifics of the agreements. Evaluations are being made of all policies and procedures. Each item is being individually addressed, and the necessary adjustments are being made as needed. We currently have 4 employment opportunities available in the water utilities department. And changes are being implemented in the meter reading process, and assessments are being made to improve capture of revenue. Considering the adversity of increased workload coupled with reduction in available manpower, I would wish to give commendation to the entire water utility staff for stepping up and muscling through these difficult times. On the wastewater treatment facility, the collection system is made up of the gravity flow lines and 4 lift stations that carry wastewater from residents and commercial businesses in and around the city of Alpine. The Alpine wastewater treatment facility is then treated and monitored before proper discharge in accordance with TCEQ regulations. In July, there were 13.915 million gallons of treated wastewater discharge, 415,000 gallons of treated wastewater reuse. There were 5 sewer taps and 3 sewer backups addressed. In the month of August, there was 303 gallons of treated wastewater discharge, 654,000 gallons of treated wastewater reused. There were no sewer taps, and there were 5 sewer backups addressed. On ongoing projects, evaluations will be needed for future growth of the system. Engineers are currently evaluating the needs of the wastewater treatment facility. The treatment facility, just as a side note, requires a whole lot of attention and its condition. And I would like to say thanks to Mike Macy's for his dedication, hard work, and keeping it afloat. Anybody have any questions on the wastewater? Yes, sir.
One quick question on the water leaks for July and August. I noticed that 11 July and 7 in August. I'm just curious, are the water leaks citywide, or are they concentrated on certain areas of the city?
There is no rhyme or reason right now, sir, to our water leaks. They are just as sporadic as they could be. I wouldn't say they are of any one local area to be of any concern that there may be a concern with that specific area. I mean, it just happens.
Small leaks or
Small leaks, most of them. We had a few large leaks. We had one addressed on, oh, you have to forgive me, I'm on the street, in front of the stable. What is it? Holland. Yes, Holland.
That was
Right. Yes, we had a sizable leak there that had to be addressed. We've had a couple sizable leaks out in the Sunny Glen area that need to be addressed, and various small leaks. We have had a few large ones.
and your assessment as to the why for these leaks? Just overweight old pipes?
At this time, I wouldn't want to go out on a limb and comment specifically on them. I'm still assessing all of the issues, so I feel it's safe not to just make an uneducated assumption.
One thing that might help us in the future, Chris, and I know you're getting your feet on the ground, is just from a trend standpoint.
Yes.
300,000 gallons of wastewater seems low to our average, particularly in the summer. So sometime when you get some trends, that would be great.
300,000.
Gallons a day. Yeah, that's basically.
Oh.
9.2 million divided by 31.
Yes.
3,000 a day. And I think the water usage, this is 1.2 million or 1.5 million.
Right.
Normally sometime kind of like 1.8. So it'll just help us as we think about long term.
No, yes, sir. I do agree, and I intend to, as we progress forward in our timeline, that I will start showing some trends. I just
Okay, you need to figure it out.
want to make sure that everything's in a proper order for all of you. Any other questions? Thank you.
Yes, I had a question from Mr. White.
Yes, sir.
From Mr. Point of order.
This is just for city council.
Okay, I'm sorry. Public meeting.
Thanks, sir.
Okay. Public hearings. What's that? Yes, ma'am.
Our first public hearing is to obtain citizens' view and comments of ordinance number 2018-08-02, repealing ordinance 2010-07-02, which designated a one-way street on 6th Street between Avenue E and Holland Avenue with traffic flowing north and south, and providing the necessary signs for the designation as a two-way street as provided in the Texas Transportation Code.
Thank you. Any comments? Yes.
Should I step up?
Yes, yes, ma'am. Please.
Pardon me, Chris.
My name is Carla McFarland, and I reside in Ward 5, unique the address 701 East Sol Ross. For decades, I've had ownership, management, and tenancy interest in property in Ward 4, including the Holland Hotel, and at 115, 117 North 6th Street, now owned by Sarah Sibley. This morning, KBLF News announced that the reason for 6th Street being made a one-way was because of parking. There were a number of factors involved in that decision-making process, including but not limited to parking. I led the movement to convert 6th Street into a one-way. The idea was discussed amongst the various building owners and tenants of the day, and as far as I recall, there was unanimous support for the change. I recall Councilman Bob Brewer putting the item on the agenda after extensive and thorough research and study by the city, TxDOT, law enforcement, code enforcement, etc. Reasons for a one-way included, yes, the parking issue. Head-in angled parking is a more efficient use of space, as parallel parking is more awkward, especially with the very high curbs on parts of 6th Street. Folks must park quite far from the curb. And let's face it, we are not the best parallel parkers on the planet. But the striping for the parking never happened. Jeff Haynes, longtime owner of the Hill Building, today stated that he originally supported the one-way plan with angled parking. As the striping was never done, he felt that returning to a two-way was an option. However, his preference is definitely for a one-way with angled parking. The distance that folks park away from the high curbs reduces the available width for the two-way traffic, resulting in a 1.5 way, leading to congestion and confusion. The plan, as originally drawn, to my recollection, by Tom Mangrum, then maybe updated by Chris Weber at the time of the big TxDOT improvements, provided for motorcycle and bicycle parking, both of which are lacking in downtown. And the safety issue. The side distance problem for vehicles turning east or left onto Holland Avenue was hazardous. Some of us old timers recall numerous fender benders. I think that law enforcement embraced the plan from a safety standpoint. Downtown businesses were happy with the decision, as it was to include signage directing visitors to the downtown shopping area and the city parking on the north side of the train station. The County Tourism Board has commissioned an ongoing study for many years that indicates 70% or so of our visitors arrive from the east. But the signage never happened. Longtime downtown property owner Bill Ivey was unable to attend tonight's meeting, but asked me to voice his concern that so much attention and possibly future monies and time is being spent on undoing something that was almost finished and initially approved as a good, viable plan. Bill also noted that city resources could rather be spent on fixing things, such as train noise, that affect all the downtown merchants. Perhaps some of my recollections are flawed. It has been several years. Thus, I would encourage the review of council minutes from years ago, and also seeking the recollections of Bob Brewer and Chief Scam. This change was originally considered in the spirit of public safety and business development. I know that my friends and neighbors promoting the change back to a two-way have their reasons, which I believe should be weighed against the reasonings for the one-way designation. I would encourage everyone here, no matter your viewpoint, to take a moment and reflect on why changes are sometimes made. Yes, it can be baffling. So that is why we have history and historians. So perhaps a little digging regarding this issue from both perspectives is not unreasonable. Thank you for your kind attention.
Thank you, Ms. Martin. Anybody else? Mr. Platt?
Walt Powell, Ward 4, and I'd like to speak on this 6th Street issue. But since that you council members are probably tired of me, I've got my representation here, Ms. Miller. She will present her facts to you at this time.
Thank you very much. Well, thank you. First of all, this is my very first time attending one of these meetings. So I hope all of you will forgive any of my stumbles or anything like that as I go forward. Mr. Kyle mentioned I would present to you my facts. Well, the fact is I don't have a lot of facts to present you with. Everything that I've studied so far about this proposed change in designation, there's not a lot of information. And at least the one thing that I think that we should all have going forward is concrete information on which to base a decision. One of those pieces of information might be an upcoming study that's supposed to be coming out by TxDOT. It's a study of 142 miles of corridor of US 67, and I believe it's supposed to be coming out soon. And it regards the fact that since this street was designated a one-way street, I know that Ms. McFarland mentioned several accidents that had happened. Well, we've had a significant increase of tourism and traffic in the corridor that affects Alpine. This study coming from TxDOT is supposed to address that significant increase of traffic and how that's going to affect safety of Alpine. And that's one of the significant pieces of information that I think that we need. In addition to which, I think we need more information on cost analysis. If there's a plan that's already in place, it's going to increase the number of parking spaces, which I believe will be 19, versus a parallel parking space option, which I believe will be 18. I think there should be significant reason why we're going to move back to that two-way parking strip. But I've seen no cost analysis as to how much that change in plan is going to be. Ultimately, I know also Mr. Pyle has some outstanding requests for documents. He's provided a list here, including application for submission of the original ordinance 2010-0702. There's a whole list, A through H. So we have citizens here who are trying to do their due diligence in obtaining information. And unfortunately, that is the sum of my argument here, is that we're simply not in a place where we can move forward to a decision. Mr. Pyle, do you have anything to add?
I think that sums it up. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for your patience.
Yes, sir.
Oscar Coble said this has been an interesting issue for the community. Last Friday, we brought this for all of your packets for all councilmen in reference to the plan that was out there somewhere from Texas Department of Transportation. And we delivered them to the city manager, secretary, everyone. And it shows right there what was shelved. See, if we're moving forward, we have downtown associations, we have everything going on. We have to keep moving forward and not repealing ordinances. I'm here for the people. First of all, I want to say, I'm not here to see corners jackhammered down. These are ADA compliant corners. I'm not here to bring all these fast track changes. I noticed the paper had a council considers repealing 6th Street one way. Seems like this issue was fast tracked and it jumped from one reading to the second reading to somewhere along the way, somebody put it in the front burner. We don't even know who put it in the public meeting. But one way and another, we're going to have to get back to what's for the people, for public interest, for ADA compliant people, for this one way with no liability issues of two ways. If we want to move forward in the area of economic development, with as Ms. Stephanie noted, and everybody knows here that we got a lot more people here. So we have to move for the people now, downtown associations, the city of Alpine, and people to make these suggestions in the area of economic development, the area of safety, and more parking. Even if we make an amendment with parking on both sides of the street, but angle parking, maybe there's money here somewhere. Maybe there's a grant that was shown somewhere. I'd like to know if there was actually a grant too. I will be filing a Texas Public Information request for that. And I did file a Texas Public Information request as well for the previous ordinance and the new ordinance that was already put on the front burner without even knowing. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, sir. See your hand back there.
Hi, my name is Julie Balovich. I am not a resident of the city of Austin, but I work for an organization that is a tenant on 6th Street at 114 North 6th Street. Ms. McFarland was correct that when the original ordinance was proposed, that all of the business owners and tenants on the street were consulted. I was in favor of the change at the time because it was going to come with diagonal parking. Since then, since that didn't happen, what I've observed for the last 10 years is people going the wrong way down that street all the time. It's never enforced, and it's very, very dangerous. So my experience as a tenant on that street is that it being a one-way street is dangerous, and that it reduces the parking available, because if you don't have a vehicle that has enough of a rise to it, a Honda Civic like I drive is too slow to the curb, I have to park on the right side of the street. So that has reduced the parking that is available for people who are not in SUVs or crossovers. So I am in favor of changing it back to a two-way.
Thank you very much. Is there anybody else?
Hi, I'm Sarah Sibley. I'm a tenant, or I own 115 and 117 North 6th Street. I was here at the last meeting. And there was a point brought up about not having sufficient facts. And that's one of the reasons why I wanted to come back today, was to give the council some more information specifically about what's going on 6th Street. First of all, one of the reasons why, and I'm actually really glad Carla McFarland was here to explain the history as to why it was turned into a one-way to begin with. So I'm glad we all got that history. And she said one of the reasons that it was suggested to be a one-way was to have more parking. And what I wanted to let the city council know is that currently with parallel parking, here's my sophisticated diagram. There's buildings here, there's an alley, there's buildings here, an alley, buildings here. With the parallel parking along the street, there are 16 spots, so 4, 4, 4, and 4. I went out there today and counted how many vehicles could comfortably park here without any parking signs, parking lines, and there's 4, including pickup trucks and SUVs. So right now the street can comfortably hold 16 vehicles, and I think then the diagonal parking, which is proposed as the one-way, I think it can hold 19 vehicles. In my mind, having a one-way street with 19 spots does not outweigh having a two-way street with 16 spots. We're making it a one-way with 3 more additional parking spots. When we have public parking in the train station, plenty of public parking on Holland Avenue and Avenue E. I personally never had an issue finding a spot on that block. I may not be able to park right in front of my building, but I may park on Holland Avenue. I may park, down the street. And so I don't think right now the current parallel parking situation is an issue. It is true that there are high curbs on this side of the street, which is why they wanted to have angled parking on the right side. But those high curbs exist really one spot on either side of the street. Up here, the curbs are not high, so you can still park very close to the curb, leaving plenty of room in the street. We have high curbs all over the city. That was part of the beautification of Alpine. We have high curbs on Holland, high curbs on Avenue E, but we haven't changed our roads based on that. The second point was it's been suggested that maybe the width of 6th Street has been too narrow, and maybe that's why it needs to be a one-way. The idea was, in the past, if you have cars parked here and parked here, there wasn't enough room for two-way traffic. That's simply not true. I went out to measure 6th Street, and it's 42 feet wide, and 27 feet between parked cars. The recommended width of the lane under TxDOT is 10 to 12 feet. And so with parked cars on either side of the street, I measured between 2 big pickup trucks. There's 27 feet. That's plenty of space for 2 vehicles to pass. I also went down to 7th Street and measured the width of 7th Street, the street to the west of us. That street is 39 feet wide, and it's a two-way, and there's cars parked on both sides. And so I feel like 6th Street is definitely wide enough to be a two-way. The third reason 6th Street was turned into a one-way was to prevent the collisions that Carla talked about 10 years ago. There was a side issue here. If you come onto 6th Street and you're turning, I think she's saying turning left onto Holland. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay. There is a side issue. I don't know the history. I don't know how many collisions occurred, but I will say that there is a chance of a collision every single day right now because we have tourists frequently turning left onto the street. And so I haven't seen a collision yet, but I've seen many almost collisions. I've had to run into the street to tell people you're going the wrong way. And so I think actually the safety factor, I think it's even more dangerous now to have it a one-way because daily there are drivers going the wrong way. And that's because 6th Street is the only north-south one-way in town. I mean, there's no other street in town that's 1 block long that's a one-way. And so I think 10 years or 8 years ago when the merchants and owners, property owners on 6th Street got together to turn it into a one-way, I think they tried to fix a problem, but I think what we've learned has only made it worse, especially because the diagonal parking was not put into place. There's not proper signage. The final thing I would note is I'm not sure why 6th Street, if there needs to be a one-way in downtown Alpine, I'm not sure why 6th Street has to be the sacrificial lamb. Why can't 7th Street or 8th Street be the street with angled diagonal parking if we're trying to increase parking? So I think overall, after 8-10 years of using 6th Street, the majority of merchants and tenants on 6th Street, I think save for 2 people, all of us would prefer to keep or to turn it back into a two-way. So thank you for your time today.
Thank you. Yes.
Hi folks, my name is Rick Johnson. I'm a recent arrival to Alpine. It's been 2-3 months, and I'm here in 2 capacities. One for myself, we'll start there, it's most important. I work at Rod Ponton's office right there, 123 North 6th Street. So for better or for worse, I'm there every day at all hours of the day and night. And so I've become quite familiar with that little stretch the past few months. And I remember when I first came out here, it really struck me as odd that 6th Street was a one-way. It was originally I figured, oh, this is great. They must have like New York. There's one ways here, one way there. But it turned out that it was pretty much arbitrary, and so that got me scratching my head. And then, a month or so later, speaking to some folks, and I hear, oh, this is coming before the city council, and it had already happened. I was like, darn, well, I wish I could have said something, but now I have my chance because one, it's just entirely pretty arbitrary, and I was actually surprised to see that when I came out here and put it all together. And then as well, discussing this issue of parking. As someone who has been there at all hours of the day and has to park on the street, I will say I've never had an issue finding parking. I may not be able to park right in front of Rod's office, but I can easily park on Avenue E. I've never even had to go to Holland because I'm coming in from that side of town. And so I don't understand how the parking appears to be an issue. Even on, when there's events going on in the town, I've still been able to park in that area, no problem. And then you have to ask how much parking would actually be gained, and then at what cost, given the sort of inertia of the whole process already, that it was slated to be one way with the additional parking, and that obviously didn't go forward. And so to go forward at this point, what would be the cost and what exactly would be gained? 1 to 3 more parking spots, as I understand the math seems to be. Seems like that would be quite a bit of confusion and money spent and resources spent for something that doesn't necessarily have, there's not necessarily a need for it. And then beyond that, I would have some concerns regarding turn-in angled parking. As of now, I will go out and enter the office and see folks routinely going the wrong way down that street. And Rod has me in an office with no windows in the back, so I just see it when I go back and forth outside. And in those times, I probably take more than 2 hands, just a few months I've been out here, to say the number of folks that I've seen going the wrong way. So you can imagine the kind of issue you'd run into with someone backing out onto a one-way and not even looking at a vehicle coming the other direction. And so you have serious liability issues, potential cost of human life for no reason.
And that would definitely be unfortunate. Then additionally, as one of the lower people on the totem pole at Rod's office, I routinely am sent outside to flag down potential clients from out of town because they're so confused as to how to get to the office. They're out on one street and, well, this is a one-way, that's a one-way. And so, I'm running down towards 5th, 7th, left, right, up, down. And it seems to confuse a lot of folks. And I think that takes us back to the sort of arbitrary nature of it. And then beyond that, I've also seen, we were discussing the potential for accidents turning left onto Holland and, that sort of issue. But I've routinely seen folks, as I'm making a left onto Holland, stop and try to make the turn. And, I get dirty looks from people saying, why are you in the middle of the road when I'm trying to make a left turn out? And there just doesn't seem to be a recognition of people passing through that there's going to be this one random street that happens to be a one-way. And then beyond that, Rod asked me to drop by and put his 2 cents in, and he would like to see it go back to the two-way himself. He's been there for a while and, sort of seen some of the same things that I've seen. We discussed it at length today. So he wanted to make sure that I put that in for him. So, in summation, I mean, it seems arbitrary. There's really no rhyme or reason to having this one spot be a one-way. Parking, there seems to be plenty of it. And I've never had to walk more than 10, 20 yards. If I did have to walk more, I'd probably fit to a slimmer shirt, but it's just not the case. So it's been a quick, easy walk. And then again, how much is gained and at what cost? And then I'm really concerned about the danger of turn-in parking there, given the one-way issue. I just foresee a lot of folks coming down the wrong way as someone's pulling out and not looking. And then, just the general confusion factor to come back to it. So I've thoroughly enjoyed my time out here in Alpine. I'm looking forward to sticking around. So thank you guys for hanging me out. Appreciate it.
Thanks, sir. Any more discussion? Yes, ma'am.
Cheryl Lincoln's Ward 3. I just want to say it's not just the tourists. I've lived here a long time and I still accidentally start to turn into 6th Street because we've done it for so long that you simply are not expecting it still to be there.
Thank you, ma'am. Yes, sir, Mr. May.
Thank you, council, mayor, citizens, and concerned. I've lived in Alpine for 40 years, and I worked for TechStop for 30 years. One thing that's come up a little bit, which is to straighten up the historical factors, is that this ordinance, which is numbered by the date that I guess it was passed, which it was 2010 of June, and which I retired 40 years prior to that. So as far as my input officially into making it one way, I didn't even have an interest. Now my wife and I have bought a piece of property on 6th Street in this block, and the experience that I have coming and going, I routinely park over at the railroad just to avoid having to go. Well, you got to go on down to 5th Street, make a left, and then turn back on Avenue E, and then make another left. It's kind of like NASCAR, it's just all left. So that's that. But and back in, I think it was June, I wrote a letter, which after discussion with lots of the different people that either live, work, own businesses on 6th Street, and I submitted this letter to the city council, and which that was on June 12th. And I have numerous signatures from a lot of the concerned people that were, have an interest on 6th Street, which I guess any tax-paying citizen has an interest. But in my letter that I wrote and got these supporting signatures from most of the folks, it's mainly just a traffic analysis of what people have to do to navigate the downtown area if you're wanting to go on to 6th Street, which one of the main concerns is you have to go into the intersections of Holland Avenue and 5th Street, which that's, two major US highways, 67 and 90, with an intersection of the State Highway 118, in which is the same situation once you make the block onto Avenue E. And so just that additional congestion to that area, whether you're, just the local trying to make your way around the block, or just the traffic and look through traffic, and that addition there. So as far as I think there's support, and as far as the changing of the signs, I don't think there has to be another post put up. All we have to do is put a stop sign on Avenue E and take down some of the one-ways. And one thing that people have talked about is there's 2 no parking zones on 6th Street that were established for previous businesses there that had, a lot of loading coming and going, in which that doesn't exist anymore. So actually those no parking zones, which weren't available parking legally, could be removed. So thank you very much.
Thanks, sir. Any more? Yes, ma'am.
Hi, my name is Kyla Sibley Cutforth. I'm in Ward 1. I have a business on 6th and Lockhart. And I don't have much to say, just that I grew up on 6th Street for 15 years and now have been back in Alpine since 2001. And it has always been jarring for me having to not be able to turn there because I'm so used to it. I'm sort of reiterating what she said. And I also wanted to reiterate what Sarah said, that it's very confusing. It's the only north-south one-way in town.
Thanks, ma'am. Okay. Thank you all very much for your comments. We're going to go ahead and move on to item B.
Mayor, B is public hearing to obtain citizens' views and comments on a small animal permit request. This application is a request by Cheryl Welch for a permit for a temporary bottle-fed baby calf to be located at 504 North 17th in Alpine.
We've got somebody on the podium already.
No, I just came to see about getting a permit for my calf. That's all. So, I don't know what else to do. But no, and it will be temporary. It's just like 6 months max.
All right. Thank you, Sheriff. Any more? Then we'll move to item C.
Mayor, C is public hearing to obtain citizens' views and comments concerning the request for the annexation of property, 5.17 acre tract of land out of section 102 in block 9, G, H, and SARY CO survey, being out a 10.16 acre tract of land described in book 210 at page 472, and being all of the 1 acre tract of land described in book 324 at page 164, both reported among the official public records of Brewster County, Texas, by the city of Alpine. The property would be zoned as R2 multifamily district or R3 apartment district, depending on the platting of the property for single-story multifamily.
Okay. Is there anybody? Yes, sir.
So it's also Cobbles for the people here. I just wanted some clarification on this particular item. Just a question for the city. Is it the same property that's listed on the real estate market at 1100 Lechuguilla, which is priced at $385,000? Is this the property that belongs to the guy with the heads of property, the business of Teak Furniture? I just needed some clarification on this particular property. Is it 5 acres? Or is it the 7 acres that's on the, what does it say guide right now? I just wanted to have some clarification on that for the people. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, sir. Yes, ma'am.
Hi. I'm Linda Troncosa with Train Associates. I'm here on behalf of the owner and the applicant, so I'm happy to answer any questions if you need any help. And I may be able to answer that one. I can share a map. It's part of some of the submittals, but it is on Lechupia, just east of South Harrison Street. Is that the same property you're looking at? I don't have an address, I just have a map. And so what we're looking at is developing 5.475 acres of that project parcel.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, sir, Mr. Plain.
I'm Carl Fleming, Ward 5, Chairman of the Planning and Zoning Commission. The question I came with this one is the property would be zoned as R2 multifamily or R3 apartment, depending on the planning or for a single multifamily units. It's my understanding in the ordinances that an annexation, everything's brought in as R1 until it's determined that they're not R1. And why would the city want to annex a piece of property with the future commitment saying, well, yeah, we're going to build, but we're not sure what we're going to build yet, and take the responsibility for that land? Just like Country Club Estates, the city got ramrodded into a program before the whole thing was done. It was only about a third of the way done. And we're now living with the problems of that, because it was not poorly designed and there wasn't a lot of forethought looking into it. But so basically, if we annex it now, it would be brought in as R1, which is what the North Dakota regulations say. And then it would have to be after whatever was built, or they would have to come back before the planning and zoning and request permission of what they want to do. And my recommendation would be let them build what they want to build on the county land. Then the city look at annexing it as it is, and that solves a lot of problems for the city in the future.
Thank you, sir. Okay, any more?
If I may, sir. Once again, Linda Troncosa. So we do have a plan for what is proposed. There it is a mixture of 1-bedroom, 2-bedroom, and 3-bedroom apartments and townhouses. It's a multi-family project. And so because there is some specificity, we're already asking for this to come in with a specific zoning so that you guys know up front what the whole plan is. We're asking for the annexation to come in with that zoning so that you guys know you have a building for specific buildings and you get to inspect and look at the whole process all the way through so that you get your boots on the ground and are able to inspect something during the construction rather than after it's built in the county. So we're happy to comply with whatever you need, but we'd really like to do those things together so that you get to see the whole package at once.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay.
Am I allowed to say something? Mayor and council, if I may, the annexation is a result of the request by the developer, or I should say by the request of the city, of the developer at the time that the developer was submitting an application to the Texas Department of Housing and Human Affairs for the tax credit program. So this is a result of the request from the city.
Thank you, ma'am. Any more? Seeing none, we'll go ahead and move to the consent agenda. Minutes, financial records, department written reports, board appointments, etc. And city manager.
Item A under consent agendas, approval of minutes from the city council meeting on August 21st, 2018, and approval of official holidays for fiscal year 2018-2019.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Mayor, I move to accept the consent agenda.
Okay, is there, motion's been made and second, any discussion? Seeing none, go ahead and vote on it. All those in favor, raise your right hand. Opposed, like sign. Motion carries. Thank you. Let's go on to information or discussion items and public knowledge. I'm sorry, I skipped one. B on the city holiday. City manager,
They're all under consent agenda together.
we all voted on it.
Yes,
So one time
they're
vote.
together. Yeah, so, you're on number 7.
Yep.
Item
Information.
8 is quarterly report, Alpine Public Library from Executive Director Don Weather. Why can I not think? I am so sorry.
Good evening, everybody. I'm pleased to present a report about the library for the last quarter. It was a very busy summer. Last time I was here, I mentioned the Read to Swim program with the kids, and I'm happy to say that by the end of the summer, 168 kids have gotten free day passes to the pool. So that was a good turnout, and it was nice to see all those kids in the library reading. The summer reading program, Libraries Rock, had 60 kids participate. That was a program that was made possible by a grant from the Dollar General Literacy Foundation. And there was enough interest in the class that it's going to continue through the fall on Tuesday afternoons after school as library visitors. The summer science camp that we had this summer was particularly important because it was our first go at it, and a lot of effort went into making it happen. Last year, AISD developed and implemented a district innovation plan, and the goal of the library is to collaborate with the school district and to enhance the new STEM curriculum. We want to encourage and excite students with innovative hands-on projects. Additionally, we want to promote the library's nonfiction materials and to make students and kids feel comfortable and confident in the library. Now, the science camp was geared for kids entering grades 4 to 6. The purpose was to enhance the recently implemented STEM programs, and the response was overwhelming. By the end of the first day of registration, half of the available slots had been filled. By the end of the first week of registration, the camp was completely full, and a wait list was started. And by the end of the second week of registration, the wait list had more than doubled the number of kids interested in the camp. We had kids on call should a camp participant need to cancel at the last minute. And we're already planning the 2019 summer camp. To us, this indicates the need for STEM educational opportunities is very strong in Alpine. The desire for such classes is even stronger among our families. We intend to enhance and continue the monthly family STEAM nights, and there's also plans to restart a science club in coordination with the middle school and have a mathematics-oriented workshops after the first of the year. Toddler time continues to be popular. We are averaging about 45 per class, and after a short summer break, toddler time will resume this week. We are continuing outreach in the community by taking library classes to daycare centers, and right now we're reaching about 40 kids a week to do that. Upcoming in September, we have the Teddy Bear Sleepover, Saturday Story Time, and a children's art workshop for ages 5 to 12, where kids will have the opportunity to create their own 3D art or simple machines by using recycled materials. The big focus for us this summer was on kids, but we still have plenty of opportunities for adults. We're currently offering 2 Spanish conversation classes, intermediate and a beginning. The classes will run through Thanksgiving. We've had a lot of demand for the classes, and there's more than we can accommodate, and we're already taking names for the next sessions. ESL and citizenship classes are going strong. We average 1 or 2 new people each month. GED classes are also full, but spaces will open soon as people take the test and move on. And we also have a couple of new tutors that are willing to help. I know we spend a lot of time on kids classes, but there is a big demand for basic adult education. I found out recently there's 30 million adults in the U.S. that haven't finished high school. 3.2 of those people live in Texas, and that costs all of us. Some of the larger libraries in the large metropolitan areas are now offering something called a Career Online High School. It's an accredited program that gives participants their high school diplomas when they finish. Currently, the average student age is 32, but the program has a success rate of 92%. Now, that sounded pretty good to me, but it's expensive. And it's not something that we can afford to do right now, but I think it is something that I would like to look into in the future. Other adult programs like yarn arts, Tai Chi, karate classes, senior coffee are ongoing and well attended. And we have some upcoming events that I hope will interest our patrons. On September 12th, KRTS is doing a storytelling workshop at 6 p.m. I have 2 local authors scheduled to come and give talks and have a book signing. On September 19th, Carl Williams, who's a former sheriff of Brewster County, is going to come in and talk about his book titled More Than a Badge, Rough Country, the Law, and Me. And in October, another local author, Ben English, is going to have a talk and a book signing. Ben is a retired DPS patrolman, and his book is entitled Yonderlings. It's a book on the history of South Brewster County, and he has a lot of interesting information to pass on. For example, I think he can talk for a long time about all the unsolved murders in South County. The book was published by TCU Press and has been getting good reviews. Now we're going to have Sarah McQuaid here live and in concert on September 26th. And we're planning to have the Wonderful Carnival again the Monday before Halloween. So finally, I want to give you a few statistics from our 2017 annual report to the Texas State Library Archives Commission. Last year, we had 49,905 visits to the library. That's about 4,000 more than we had the year before. Additionally, we currently have about 8,770 Brewster County residents active accounts in the library. Since the beginning of this year, we are averaging about 20 new library cards a month. Additionally, we have 128 tech share patrons and 227 non-Brewster County accounts. So let me explain tech share a little bit. As an accredited library in Texas, we can participate in the tech share program. You can come to your library here and get a tech share card, and you can use that card in any tech share library across the state. Currently, we have given out from our library 37 tech share cards in 2017, and we've had 13 visitors use their tech share cards. Other advantages of being a tech share library: for a small yearly fee that we pay to the state, Alpine Public Library patrons have access to 52 different databases free of charge. And another advantage is interlibrary loan support. If we don't have something on the shelf that we want, we can usually get it through interlibrary loan. We've been promoting the interlibrary loan program and getting a good response. The standard fee is $1.50, but citizens and friends of the library get it free. Last year, we received 459 materials for patrons to the interlibrary loan, and we sent out 255 materials from our library to other libraries across the country. That's about all I have. Thanks for listening. Do you have any questions?
Great report. Y'all do a fantastic job there at the library. And it's always good to see the numbers increase every year.
Yes, it is. Thank you very
Great
much.
job.
Excellent work. Keep up the good work.
Okay. Thank you.
Mayor, next we have the quarterly report from the Emergency Management Coordinator by Stephanie Elmore.
Good afternoon, everybody. So first off, what I wanted to start with, we have decided to lift the burn ban just for the Alpine District. On the KBDI, the drought index, we are in about the 200 to 300 range. And to be in a burn ban, it's usually about the 500 range. But the burn ban is still on for South County and Marathon. So it goes to Elephant Mountain on 118 South, and on 118 North, it goes to the county line. On 90 West, it goes to the county line. And 90 East, it goes to mile marker 226, which is about where the Target building is. Let's see, right now, we had a summer project, and we're getting 3 to 4 water tanks placed in the Double Dime area, north-south, Loma Del Norte and the Veterans Edition. And this will be a resource for the Alpine Fire Department. So it just gives them more water, more resources. And we're trying to get those in place. Soon we're trying to figure out prices and everything. So that'll be access for y'all. We are also currently working on annexes. So these are like your hazard plans, mitigation plans, and we're updating them because they do have to be updated this year. So once these are all updated, we'll get the city a copy so they know the plans that we have for the county if ever needed. We're also updating the flood maps. These have been out of date. So the ones that I found are from like 1987, I think. So TDM has offered to help me get new maps. They're currently working with me on them, and we're going to get them out to the county and the city as well. And one of the programs that we're working on is called Web EOC. So this is where you log in and you add different things that's going on in the city and the county. And I just met with the district coordinator about 2 weeks ago. And so the thing that we're going to do now is whenever the city has events, we write down what the event is. We get about how many people come into the town for this, and we log that in, and about the average number who come. And I send it to the district coordinator, and they log it in, and this is for emergency purposes. So if anything were to ever happen, like a train derailment, a fire, active shooter, anything, we know about how many people are in the area. And when that happens, people from El Paso will come in and they'll help us out on anything that we need and give us resources. So that's about all I have for y'all. If you have any questions.
Thank you very much, Ms. Elmore. And then we'll move to quarterly report.
Next we've got, sorry. Next we've got the county city engagement report by liaison Councilor Fitzgerald.
Yeah, well, there's not a lot to report. We have not had a lot of requests and everything. And we're kind of in a way gearing down a little bit because Commissioner Garrett not going to re-election. He will be done at the end of the year. And I probably will be dying for that time too. We haven't done anything. This was very, very necessary a while ago because the relationship between the city and the county was a little strained, to say the least. But now, it doesn't turn around. Our city manager and the county judge get along great. They get together, they meet regularly, they decide on things. Not that kind of contention. You don't have to have in-betweens. So Garrett's going to be gone anyway. And I turned one out too. So we're kind of just, we haven't received any requests for any assistance. So that's kind of where it stands.
Very much.
Yes, sir.
Well, my big question is, what are all the inter-city county agreements? Do we have a list of those so we can start picking those off? That was the big issue. I don't know the fire department, but the ETJs and how all those work.
We haven't done anything on those. So we haven't even, the city hasn't even finished up the fire. We were supposed to hire a coordinator, and we haven't got around to do that either.
So I guess I'm the one who kind of pushed for it early on.
Yeah.
And I guess my concern is if we're not any further along in the process. I know you work with the judge, but boy, it should be nice from a council standpoint. What are the things where we need agreement between the city and the county? We've not seen it at all. And so I worry about risk from the city standpoint, whether it's roads, whether it's safety, whether it's all the other elements. But we just don't have a document that we can look and say, these are the things we need to be thinking about. And a lot of things are. I know that, so that's the worry. That's what kind of drove that. We need a plan in my view.
Every time we come up with something, they say, well, we agreed with this here years ago. So how'd you agree when we shook hands on it? I didn't get it, you know.
So I don't know, Jessica, what your thoughts are, but
I like speed of paper.
yeah, you'll be right. Absolutely.
Yeah.
So based upon what Fitz is saying, you're the one that's about to pick up the ball for this. Are you ready to pick that ball up? Okay. So
I have a standing meeting with the county judge every 2 weeks and try to make a little bit of progress. In fact, we're meeting again tomorrow. He's already sent me confirmation, and they're going to have their attorney put the interlocal one together for the recycling center.
okay.
So while we're still working through the fire department issue, we're getting started on the next one. And then we talked about doing some additional
actually putting some stuff on paper in other areas where there was always questionable as to who was going to do what and to how much. I think the only other agreement we have in paper is with the ambulance service with them.
So are we gonna have another coordinator? Once it's leaves?
I think that's up to council.
Yeah, so I think we should.
Well,
I think we should and always, document everything. So we have like, Councilman Stephen said, we need to know in writing if this is what's going on instead of just a good old handshake looking back on the past.
So this is a good example of what I'm saying. She meets with the county judge every couple of weeks, and they talk on the phone and everything. That never happened years ago.
I'm not arguing with that at all. My view as council, I think we have an obligation to the city to know what are the holes in the relationship between the two. And I guess what I'd like to see is what's the list? And so, and it doesn't mean that it has to be complete. Merely having the list, in my view, would be a major step in the right direction. So between you and the judge can kind of say, here's the list, here's our game plan. I think that'd be very helpful. And maybe just a quarterly report out of what's going on. My worry is we don't have a list. And there's lots of discussions on lots of things. And so what the dialogue's good. I still want to fall into a situation where we got a hole and we get caught with some groups and issue that covers something. That's, if you're going to want to fix it up, that's what I would ask you. Maybe take first crack at that for the September 18th. Here's the list. That's important.
I agree with Councilman Stevens on, I think it's important, yes, to have that list, but also that list, if there are agreements in place or to be in place, that they're up to date and where all the parties involved are agreeable to.
Any more discussion? Okay.
Here next, we've got discuss the loading and unloading on 5th Street by Primco, the old Napa building on 7th Street, and the 2 on 6th Street by Councilor Escobar.
We have the 2 signs that are on 6th Street and the one that is on 7th Street. But they're just there, they're no longer being needed. I can't remember who commented on not having them on 6th Street. So they just need to be removed. The one on in front of Crypto, that one hasn't been used either. They are no longer doing the FedEx pickup there. I think we have to follow the same process. We need to locate the original ordinance that enacted them and then go through this public hearing process again.
Any more?
So we're going to probably put that on the agenda for September 18th of the next week.
I think we're in October already. So I'm nodding my head for September.
Yeah.
We're going to be in October, like November.
Yeah.
The year's almost over.
Yeah, because I know the 2 on 6th Street, because I've watched 6th Street a lot, given the discussion we had today, and we've heard further on that. And that original one was put in place. The one on the west side was for the FedEx pickup, then Primco, but now that one's gone. And the one on the other side has been there a lot longer. And not for that means it since that moved. Yeah.
So on the agenda for the 15th.
Or whatever
Whenever it comes up.
So probably hear on that one. Yeah.
Okay, any more discussion on that item? Okay.
Here next, you have an update for the Brewster County Appraisal District by Councilor Stevens.
So as the representative for the city on the Brewster County Appraisal District Board, and also happen to be the chair this time around, we approved the budget for this next fiscal year at $515,000. Alpine, the city of Alpine share is $61,900. I'm sorry, that was last year. It's now $63,300. So that's a 2% increase. The no total number of employees on the Brewster County Assessment District in terms of appraisers. There were 6 appraisers and 1 office staff and 1 consultant. And given the amount of work they get done, my sense we're getting our good bang for the buck. There are 7 members. In addition to Brewster County, we have Big Bend Regional Medical Center, the city, school district, Marathon Independent School District, San Vicente Independent School District, and the Carolina School District. So those are the 7 members. Overall, the budget was an increase of about 7% this year. But the predominant increase of the payer was Alpine Independent School District, since they are the ones that collect the most tax revenue out of what goes on, and that's where the allocation is there. It's based upon tax revenue collected. So our assessments didn't go up that much, but the school district's assessment went up quite a bit because of the increased valuations that occurred out of not only the pipeline, but also the Soul District. The Soul District has put in their value in the $75 million range. And so those who are part of the county and Independent School District Alpine is recipients of that. The city don't get any additional. That's my report.
Thank you very much.
Mayor, the next item is discuss the appraisals completed by Superior Land Services for City Hall, the old fire station, airport, animal shelter, and gas department. And if the council's not opposed, we can push that to go with item 18. The next we have Chris Weber from Textiles.
Hello, everybody. Thanks for having me. If you're not happy I'm here, you can blame Jessica. She invited me. In a lot of this, in the context of the US 67 corridor study, I'm going to give a brief update on that towards the end, if that's okay with y'all. But with a lot of discussions, whether it's 6th Street or pedestrian safety or things like that, that's one of the many reasons we're doing this study. Is, I mean, I got to write the scope for it, unlike some politicians on the one 10 years ago that I had to endure from the audience. Mind you, that was a better place to sit than the people that were on stage. But anyway, Jessica asked me to go over just some kind of common themes that seem to come up at council or come up in the community fairly often. I very often get asked my opinion on things like the right turn only at Saul Ross and 5th. Things like whether 6th Street should be one-way or two-way. The easy answer to both of those are we live in a community where it's still impossible to prevent people making a left turn from the right lane of the 2-lane one. So my advice would be, wherever possible, don't get cute. Because what we end up doing is, if you violate driver expectation, you can put all the signs and neon lights in the world. If something doesn't make sense to a driver, they're not going to comply in general. And, you know, what I prefer is the natural flow of things, like the intersection there at Saul Ross, the right turn only. I remember having a conversation with Ray Hendricks, a very lively one, during a construction job we had where we had a temporary stop sign up there. And he beckoned over the airwaves to all harass Mr. Weber and make him keep that stop sign there because it's wonderful. And I had a conversation with him about it. I love Ray. He's a good guy. There's a lot for this community, and his family has. And I said, Ray, why do you want it to be a 4-way stop there? And he said, well, it takes forever sometimes to make a left turn. And my answer was, well, it was a question. Engineers love to answer with questions. I said, then why do you do it? There's other options. It's like Tom used to tell me, you know, it's like beating your head against a brick wall. It feels good when you stop. You know, and there's, you know, I look at traffic as water. I mean, let it kind of flow the path of least resistance. That's my engineering opinion there at the 6th Street or the Saul Ross and 5th Street intersection. As far as 6th Street, it's been mentioned here, again, related to driver expectation, why that one and not others that are narrower, and that's been brought up. As far as what TxDOT would need to do, we don't really have any involvement in this decision. You are required as a city with our municipal maintenance agreement we have with you to prevent angle parking, but that's only on state system. And that's because it's always least for the state system, it's a bad idea to try to pull out backwards where you can't see into oncoming traffic. But any decision that the city comes up with regarding 6th Street or Saul Ross and Fifth, we fully support. If you wonder how a conversion would happen, like as far as 6th Street, you cover up the offending signs that are no longer applicable with it's a real high-tech solution. We call it a trash bag and duct tape. Be taken down where there's no points of confusion there. We can even do it in the dark of night. We can make that happen. But any decision that y'all make, we'll support as always. We appreciate our relationship with the city and Brewster County. I guess one other thing, talking about crosswalks. Crosswalks come up a lot. Now I have with me only one of the almost 3,000 pages of the Texas Transportation Code, which I'd encourage you to seek out Moby Dick, War and Peace a good 10 times before trying to read this one cover to cover. But I'll start off with what is the law. We talk about who has the right of way. In terms of crosswalks, there are two types. There's a marked crosswalk and an unmarked crosswalk. They both mean the same exact thing. What that means is we don't need 4-inch white lines for you to feel free to stop traffic like the guy in front of the tank at Tiananmen Square. Of course they'll stop. The reason I've been hesitant to put crosswalks at unregulated intersections where there's not a stop sign already is I pull people. Kind of like y'all, issue comes up. It's like, all right, I'm an engineer. I want to think like a normal person. What do they think like? So I ask people, when you step off the curb and there's 2 white lines next to you, you know you're righteous and holy to make that cross, and they better stop, right? And they have to stop anyway, so maybe they'll have a chance to see you. When you step off the curb in an unmarked crosswalk, and I ask a lot of people this, they're like, well, it's kind of on me. Good, because that white line can't protect you from anything. And you still have the legal right of way. Vehicles are supposed to stop for pedestrians. And the main reason I encourage y'all's participation in this US 67 corridor study, which wraps up about a year from now, is the one-way pair we have in Alpine is really unique. And I've told Chief Scown and Daryl this before in the past, even Philip. I used to obey the law on the 2 one-ways, and I would stop for pedestrians. Until in 1998, a really dumb thing almost happened. 2 children and a mother almost lost their life because I obeyed the law. I was in the left lane over by the old post office. She wanted to cross there from 6 going towards the courthouse. She had a stroller. She had a little girl in a white dress, and she was wearing a red dress. I will never forget this image. I very astutely stopped my truck, waved them on, and since I was bored waiting for him to cross, I glanced over in my right mirror. It was a red sports car just took off from 5th, already going about 40 miles an hour, and I laid on the horn. Now I got to look. If a woman's look could kill you, trust me, I've been married 10 years, I'm close to understanding what that look is before I'm in trouble. If she could have burned through my flesh with her eyes, you know, it would have killed me. And I just rose up my hand and I pointed, and that car zoomed past about a foot in front of that stroller. And since then, I have never stopped at a non-regulated intersection for a pedestrian because I can obey the law, but I don't want 3 human lives, you know, lost because I obeyed the law and someone else didn't. Because where I was sitting with my truck, they couldn't see that car, and that car couldn't see them. So we do have some unique challenges. We really appreciate participation in this study. There are things like, God forbid I say this in Alpine, a little button you can press that would stop traffic temporarily, let people cross. As Jessica and I have discussed, we're not going to indiscriminately place those. It's taxpayers' money, and they're not cheap. But if there are common crossing areas, whether it's 6th Street or whatever, and we talked about the importance of a plan in the past, which I appreciate. If there are certain intersections along the one-way pair that have a higher volume of pedestrian traffic, we would look into the possibility of placing something like that, but only with the city's support and interest, of course. A couple other things, just quoting. A lot of times it's like people wonder, well, I remember when I was in driver's ed. Well, I wasn't even in this state when I took driver's ed. So I go back to the law. Vehicle operators must yield the right of way to pedestrians in a crosswalk if no traffic signal is in place for operation. A pedestrian may not suddenly proceed into the path of vehicles so close as it is impossible for a vehicle operator to yield. A pedestrian must yield the right of way to vehicle operators when crossing the roadway at a place other than a marked or unmarked crosswalk at an intersection. What that means is if you don't have any signalized intersections, which you have to go to Del Rio and Van Horn to find, they're not here. There's no such thing as jaywalking in Alpine, Texas. I've heard people mention before, well, they were jaywalking. There's no such thing. They are, however, required to yield the right of way to the vehicle. So the only other thing I wanted to mention briefly, which is hard for me, is the dog ear, elephant ear, bulb outs, whatever people call them, that we did this past part of past couple construction jobs. And those are the widened areas of concrete where people aren't supposed to park anyway, but we figured out yellow curb does not mean you can't park there. It just means you shouldn't. So now it's a really bumpy ride if somebody tries to park there. Those are done for several reasons. And like any sound engineering, was not done indiscriminately because we had concrete left over, put it here. There's actually a point to that and why we designed them that way for several things. I think Walt earlier mentioned, ADA compliance, that sort of thing. Well, what we did right there by eliminating the shoulders right there where you're not supposed to park anyway, we basically cut the distance in half that anyone that's crossing the street has to cross, that they're in traffic per se. The other thing is, everybody remember before those jobs when you tried to make a left turn from one of the streets in between the two one-ways, and somebody's much more important to you and they're in a big hurry and they try to round that curve off going about 35, try to clip the left front of your car? Well, now, because that curb is out there and you're out to the level of that curb, they have to slow down and actually go across. The other thing it does, just for pedestrians to be able to peek past parked cars, or the passing vehicles can also see the pedestrians. So they kind of get their nose out there and see if anybody's paying attention. The other benefit is before you kind of inch up to where the cars were kind of on the edge of park where you could almost see, and then you kind of look through the windows, and if you don't see a flash of light for about 1 second, you just go and hope. Well, you're able to get out there a little farther now legally to try to see those. The reason it's difficult a lot of times to turn left from the interior streets to the one-ways is because people don't go the speed limit. They don't give you enough time to make that decision. And I've been asked before, well, people are going 40, so we should take the 30 and make it 20. Okay, they're still going to go 40. They were comfortable going 40. The sign's not going to, the hand of God will not come upon them because we put a different sign up. I think there's plenty of time to get across the city of Alpine going 30 or 35. Seems to work for most of our citizens. I think a lot of that issue there at 6th Street's the same thing. If people don't take off like a bat from somewhere south of here, there's plenty of time for you to make a left or a right turn from Saul Ross on the 5th. With that, I hope I answered all of the questions that you asked me to. If anybody has any questions, I'd be glad to stick around. Yes, sir.
Well, you made a good point about being a good driver Samaritan. We've had since the last couple of years, we had the fair ladies that got run over on that 4th, then I think it was 4th in Holland. Mm-hmm. And then again on 5th Street, same thing. Somebody was being the good Samaritan, waved them on, bam, they got hit. So.
Yeah, and the onus is always on the pedestrian to protect themselves above all else because they're going to lose that fight. That's really the key. And if there are some things as elected officials or as members of the community that TxDOT needs to look at as part of this study, the whole point of this is to look at the whole corridor from Presidio to I-10, look at anticipated future traffic, the different needs within the communities along the corridor, and figure out, okay, first of all, we're over the Texas rural average for crash rates on this. And I'm a little biased because they're state highways, but I love our roads. I think it's an easy drive. I've never had a problem. But a lot of people are having incidents and accidents. There are more people being killed and injured than there should be. The reason we got all the guardrail upgraded along the corridor was because we had enough accidents to qualify for a federal program because enough people were killed and injured. I don't like getting money that way. I mean, none of it's free, but that comes at a higher cost than the price tag of a project. I'd be happy to answer any questions y'all have. If I'm able to get out of here, though, and give a 3-year-old and a 5-year-old a bath, I get to stay married. So, with that caveat, any questions from y'all?
A quick question that we need to answer right now, Chris. We can't be the only city who has pedestrian challenges.
No.
So, at some point, can you just maybe come back and tell us what the state is looking at, some options to help us, because it's a recurring issue.
Yeah, well, I'll be glad to do that. What we're really looking for is, honestly, the people that use our system to tell us, hey, this is a problem, or hey, have you considered this as a potential solution? And we'll pursue it. as anything coming out of this planning study, this is not like the last one where TxDOT's going to tell you what you need to do. That's your job, and that's the community's job to work through y'all to do that. You tell us what you need, and we make a plan, and we have consensus, and then we can work with our other elected officials to try to secure funding. You know, we're here to facilitate what your consensus and ideas are as best we can. We're not here to, as a state agency, and I live here, it's not to, I don't even offer my personal opinion. It's not where I should be ethically as an engineer. If you ask me a question about engineering, I'm going to give you an engineering answer. So anything else?
At the risk of committing sacrilege, this Wolverine compliments your Spartan. So I have an excellent report.
Well, thank you. And you're from a Wolverine. Thank y'all very much.
Okay, let's go ahead and move to the action items to be accompanied by a brief statement of facts, including where the funds are coming from, if applicable. Action items are limited to up to 10 per meeting. Citizens are allowed to comment, limited to 3 minutes after being called upon by the mayor. Citizens are required to state their name and the ward in which they reside. Priority will be given to citizens of Alpine and those who own business or property in the city. Individuals who do not live in or own business or property in the city limits of Alpine will be allowed to speak at this time available. So we'll go to item 8.
Mr. Mayor, I propose we adopt ordinance 2018-08-10, abandonment of property of 0.5 acres of the property at the intersection of North Third and the unapproved portion of the plat, but not approved section Brown Avenue identified track 1 and conveyance of document City of Alpine, recorded on 43, page 42 of the Brewster County deed record, Brewster County to Texas to Brent Falls, 801 North Bird Street, Alpine, Texas, with one amendment, and that is the third whereas, where it says abandoned at 0.5 acres should be 0.05 acres, because that's appropriate in the ordinance.
It's 0.05.
What's your sure. Okay, that's the motion I propose.
Okay, like a motion's been made and seconded.
Quick discussion, we talked about this a number of times. We're going through the legal process of, we've done the public hearings, and now we got to get through the ordinance and follow our procedures. So that's why this is back.
Okay, any more discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, raise your right hand. Opposed, like sign. Motion carries. Thank you, sir. Let's go to item number 9.
Number 9, yes, sir, Mr. Mayor, I propose that we adopt ordinance 2018-08-11 with one edit, and that is under the third whereas we replace 0.5 acres with 0.05 acres, and that's the sale of the property, 0.05 acre property, intersection of the third and the portion plate area, as same covered in action item number 8, and that it be sold to Brick Falls at 801 North Third, Alpine, Texas, for the appraised value of $2,600.
Okay. Motion's been made and been second. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, raise your right hand. Opposed, like sign. Motion carries. Okay. Item 10, Councilman.
Yes, sir. So I propose that City Council take action to amend the City of Alpine, Texas, Resolution 2018, so 2018-0601 on hotel property tax funding allocations that was passed on June 5th, 2018 for the purpose of clarification and to resolve administrative items. So that's the motion.
Okay, motion's been made and second. Any discussion? Yes, sir.
And you will see in the package, the last 2 pages of the package is the background and the rationale behind making the amendment. There were a number of items in there that I thought we could really help with, and the specific pages are listed there, including paragraph 3 on page 207 that talks about how funds that are not allocated could be deposited into reserve. It currently says for future capital improvement projects, my recommendation of the allocation during the current fiscal year or the future fiscal years based upon the discretion of the City Council. That gives the council the latitude of where to put it. The next item was Paragraph 3 on page 207 provides a formula for the allocation of funds based upon an annual basis City Council would use. Of the 8 items, Council has yet to allocate funds for a number of those items. So the proposal is that we add a line that says, in the event that there are not sufficient requests for allocation of funds according to the formula, City Council has latitude to allocate funds up to the statutory maximum, or if there are no statutory maximums beyond the percentage allocation of the funding levels. Paragraph 5 is probably the one that received the most comments from the most people that I've got feedback from. It states that the successful application received a 2-year, actually 3-year tiered award depending upon availability of funds. 100% of the award for the first year, 75% of the initial award for the second year, and third year funds would not be allocated. As we have discussed, and in my view, I think it's in the best interest of the council to have the flexibility. So I suggest we add up the words, events that have occurred on an annual basis, fulfill the requirements of Texas Tax Code, Chapter 351, may be funded at higher amounts, up to 100%. In subsequent years, the application is eligible at the discretion of City Council. That gives us the ability to do particularly those programs that have booked the hotels every year. We can outright, and we don't have to worry about it. We can certainly manage our funds every year. Look and say, hey, did they work it? But it still allows everyone to submit their 3-year hot funding application. The following year, we'll just look at it and say, if they fill it up, we know 100% so long as the funding there. I think that was always the intent. I believe those words help word that.
I think this adds clarity.
It adds clarity to it. The other recommendations are what I would call more nits. And when I say nits, it helps that, and you can see the details in there. For example, it removes 2018 from paragraph 7 because we hope this is an enduring policy, and so we take the year out, so it's applicable all the time. And the last one on page 407, we replace July 11th at 4 p.m., because that's only occurs this year, with the second Wednesday of July at 4:30 p.m. That's when the applications would be due. So I think that helps us a lot in terms of our management of that. Still is fully compliant with the Texas Code 351, which is one of the reasons this is put together, but I think it gets us all to where we want to be for the long term. Sorry for being so long-winded, but I wanted to kind of walk through all the changes and this, and they're all delineated in your package.
But that also adds a lot of clarification to it. It was pretty confusing at first. Okay. Motion made. There's a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, raise your right hand. Opposed, like sign. Motion carries. Thank you, sir. And so. Wait a minute, just a second. Sure.
So, Mr. Mayor, action item number 11, I propose that the council approve the allocation of the hotel occupancy tax funds for fiscal year 2018 and 19, and the funding total award of $183,863 that would go out to the applicants, but consistent with the total funding of the $587,507 that covers including the $25,000 associated with advertising. And I would like to turn to the city manager to provide any additional insight and perspective. I wanted to get it on the agenda, but that's the proposal. A motion, I should say.
Motion.
That's the motion I would make.
Is there a second? Second's been made, motion's been made, and seconded. Any discussion?
Now I'd like to turn to the city manager for additional insights.
Mayor and council, in your packets, you have this spreadsheet, which breaks down the 22 requests for funding that the city received. Of the 22 requests, the very last one, number 22, was not eligible for funding. So the amount requested is not included in that total. Based upon their request, you can also see how it breaks down according to the categories as listed in the policy, as it refers to the total amount of funding for the whole year. The very last column is the funding that we're recommending for the remaining 21 applicants. It gives you, there were sufficient funds to cover all of the requests. There were some that were reduced slightly in order to meet the 25% requirement, but for the most part, most of them will receive most of the funding that they've requested.
So the 25% requirement is driven by Texas code?
No, it is driven just by the policy to ensure that there is adequate funding to cover a diverse number of events.
Any more discussion?
I had a question about a couple of these. There were a few in here that looked like they were just fundraising events on it says not that we would do that. So that's what I was curious about. The one that was that I was most curious about was the Family Crisis Center, that they were requesting some money to hold a concert or something in the Civic Center for fundraising. So that's what I was curious about that one, and the one is also for fundraising. I mean, I don't think that there's a problem with the reason why they're raising funds. That's on the thing that says we're not going to do that.
There was a lot of gray areas with some of these applications. Some of them were returned because they specifically said this is a fundraiser, and because we're not allowed to fund fundraisers, they were returned. The applications do not say that specifically that they were fundraisers. The Kiwanis, in looking at the material that was submitted, is really to fund the bands at the 4th of July event, not the fireworks or not any of the other activities that are associated with that event. The Family Crisis Center was another one that we did look at, and it is a gray area. I think for the first year, the kind of discussion as we were reviewing these was that we need to work with each of these groups to submit better applications so that we really understand the purpose of the event, other than just putting heads in beds.
I would say on the Family Crisis Center, although a worthy cause, how those heads and beds.
I'd have to look through here according to their application. According to their application, they expect 150 people to use Alpine motels for beds and breakfast. And over the past 3 years, they've used anywhere from 50 to 60 hotel rooms with the event.
I was just curious, it doesn't seem to me that any crisis center would do those beds, but okay.
What about the Valerie mural?
So the total funding is in there. It's not one of the 21 we're asking to be approved at this time. There's additional information I think that we need to get, and we had some questions for legal as far as ownership, copyright, maintenance agreements, and contracts with the designer on it.
None of that was done in the past, so the questions that we had as we were reviewing these, none of us really had an answer for it. And so the 183,863 awards the funding for including the mural, but or allocates the funding for the awards, but doesn't necessarily award that specific one yet until we have additional.
Yeah, I'd be interested in who owns it after.
Who owns the mural? So that's
But you mentioned copyright. Does the city own copyright? We pay for it.
So we did have a request for permission from someone who was doing some filming here in Alpine several months ago, back in like February. And that's when we were told at that time that the city of Alpine did not own the murals and that they had to get permission from the person who held the copyright. Chris is here too.
Oh, Chris Ruccia, your tourism director. The way that copyright law works is that a work of art is the copyright is held by the artist unless it's an employee under work for hire, or the contract under which they make the art specifically transfers the copyright. That was not the case. I haven't seen the contract that Art Walk entered into with Style Reed, so I don't know who holds the copyright of the existing murals. But in particular, this was one of the questions. The contract, if the city is concerned about ownership of the visual material, that it would need to be part of the contract that the city would enter into when releasing the funds.
Yeah, I think we should hold off on that particular item until we find out the legalities on it.
I would think we ought to have some rights if we're paying for tax dollars going to this.
I would suggest that at minimum, and to be fair to the artist, a non-exclusive but total right to use the image. That would be pretty fair to the artist, because that way the artist could use the image as well for their own purposes. But any of that wording could easily be put into the contract.
Well, that sounds reasonable to the person that does the work, a piece of the pie too. But I'm just concerned that where would this eventually, since it's a gallery mural, doesn't revert back to the gallery folks.
Well, the physical object would be on city property. So the paint and the wall are already owned by the city. Then the question then is the visual material and the rights to use it. And I would suggest, being very sympathetic artist myself, I would suggest a non-exclusive but complete license to the city would be a really fair way to approach that.
Yeah, I got no problem with the city and the artist. I just want to make sure that somebody else going to get something out of it when we're paying. But the artist certainly is entitled to it. All right, thank you. Appreciate it.
I do have one question on the review and the scoring of the applications. If I understood correctly, there are 4 in the group that I guess collectively or individually look at all these applications and score them. But do you do it individually first, or do you get together as a committee and okay, this is application from such an organization and discuss it? Or what's the procedure?
So the procedure that we used is that everyone had a separate score sheet. And while we were together, we really didn't discuss the details of each application until all the scoring was done. Who was in the committee? As stated in the policy, the CFO, your tourism director, myself, the mayor reviewed them at the end, and Cynthia is not in the policy, but we asked her to step in because we can build. Totally on you out. Totally on you out. Sorry.
Cynthia, that's you.
I just feel very
unique.
Yeah, I noticed the gallery night always gets 25 grand a year. Is that a worthwhile expenditure? Well, they've been doing this for over 20 years. Do they ever become a little self-sufficient?
So in your packets, you also have this, which breaks down previous year funding. So I guess the particular one you're looking at was number 13, application 13.
Correct.
So in 15-16, they received 25,000, in 16-17, and this year they received 20,000, and they're requesting 22,000 next year. So from here, you can also kind of project what it would be in the future. So next year at 75%, they would get 16.5, and then using kind of a 50%, just to put a number in there, in that third year would be 11,000. So it's fluctuated. I think.
Just seems that 25,000 comes up an awful lot when the gallery United is asking for that. So it's just a good.
And I think when you look at, you know, how the different events that have asked for the most, it is one of those at the top. The Cowboys, you know, are at 25%. The Alpine Cowboys are at 25%. So Ross Museum, for its annual promotion, is 20,000. Sorry, can I say that? And trappings is 25,000 also.
It's definitely, the gallery is definitely a profitable deal. I remember a few years ago, Carrie got up at that podium and said that gallery weekends were 50 grand to her business alone. So, you know, she's making $50,000. That's a good way to bring people out of the hot ones. But she also paid for making two besides that. Yeah. Okay, yeah, I'm done. I'm not complaining. So.
Well, and I think this kind of gives you, you know, a kind of a platform moving forward to look at kind of a consistent process.
So
it's written there on paper.
It's written, all right. It's a right. Okay. Motion's been made.
Mr. Mayor.
Any more discussion? Yes, sir. I'm sorry.
Could we have a copy of that list? Or can you redo who got what money?
On the website.
On the website.
No, it's not.
I remember, I think it's posted.
Yeah.
You want me to redo that?
Yeah, basically you would.
Let's see. Viva Big Band, 15,000. Poetry Gathering, 15,000. So Ross Fall Exhibit, 6,000. So Ross Trappings, 25,000. So Ross Photo, 2,500. Alpine Cowboys, 25,000. So Ross Midwinter, 2,500. The Trans Pecos Ultra, 10,000. Gallery Night, 22,000. Center for Big Bend Studies, 3,000. So Ross Museum, 20,000. Back Room, 3,400. Alpine Downtown Association, 4,000. Big Bend Arts Council, 5,000. Texas Mountain Trail, 2,138. Family Crisis Center, 875. Big Bend Arts Council, 850. There were two separate applications for two different events. Fiesta del Barrio, 2,100. Kiwanis, 2,000. Gallery Mural, 10. Big Bend Film Commission, 7,500.
Yeah, that is, okay. Any more discussion? And we're gonna pull the one out for the version.
No, you're allocating all the funding.
Okay,
Motion is to allocate the 183, and then we'll go.
Okay. So, any more discussion? None? All those in favor? Opposed? Like sign? Motion carries. Thank you. Okay, let's move to item number 12.
Item number 12 is we're going to discuss about the one-way on 6th Street, but I want to table it until we get some more information.
Okay.
What I'd like to do.
Table that. Okay.
Second. I'll second that.
Second it. All those, any discussion on it? And made second, any discussion? Okay, all those in favor, table it. Raise your right hand. Opposed, like sign. Motion carries. Been tabled. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay.
I saw my name again. Don't know what else did
Okay, now you're back on to item 13.
Okay, this is for the small animal permit for the, for Sarah Welch, for the temporary permit for a bottle fed calf on 504th and 17th Street in Alpine, Texas.
And as she said, it's a temporary. So
I'll second.
second it. Okay, any motion been made second? Any discussion? She said it's a temporary type thing. So any more? All those in favor, raise the right hand. Opposed, like sign. Motion carries. Okay, go to item 14. City manager.
Mayor, this item is to take action to authorize Frank Spencer and Associates to proceed to reduce the scope of work to bring the city of Alpine Brewster County water system improvements, Texas CDBG contract number 721-7000 project cost within 210,000 construction budget set by TDA, and for Frank Spencer and Associates to rebid the project.
Entertain a motion.
So I move that we authorize FXSA to proceed to reduce the scope of work to bring the city of Alpine Brewster County water system improvements according to the contract listed within the $210,000 construction budget set by TDA, and for FXSA to rebid the project.
Is there a second? Motion been made second. Any discussion?
So what's going on?
This is the fire hydrant project that's being funded by the Texas Department of Agriculture under the Community Development Block Grant Program. And the project went out for bid, was out for bid for 2 weeks. We held a pre-bid meeting here. We had 3 contractors show up. Bid day, only 1 came. That one was like $305,000, so it was a little bit over what our budget was of $315,000. It was $105,000 over what we had been awarded to do that construction. And so because we can't do it with the grant funds, we're asking council to allow us to do what's necessary to rebid it.
So what's our probability of getting a bid that's going to be budget?
Well, we'll have to go back to TDA and probably amend or modify the project to reduce the number of fire hydrants that are being put in to meet that budget.
What was the number on that? On fire hydrants, 42. 42.
42? I thought it was 32. I think it's 32.
32.
It was probably 35. 35 altogether.
Okay. Okay, any more discussion?
So if you take out, not just doing simple math, we're probably going to end up with somewhere in the neighborhood of 20. Because by the time you got the real work, which installs the fire hydrant, you got all the overhead can suck up a lot of dollars.
Yeah,
I would hope
it was about 10,000 per hydrant. About 10,000 per hydrant.
So what's the strategy? So you got 2 ways of working. One strategy says you do all the digging, but you only put in a number of fire hydrants, and you have the ability to add fire hydrants later on. Or the other is you shorten the run. So you're not digging as much, but you still equal distance your fire hydrants, but that says some areas don't get covered. What's the game plan? Because if we're really worried about having fire hydrants to help people, we got to be within a certain distance. And then you go back and put them in. You'd like to be able to just go dig the whole plant in and put them in. So that's what you understand. And that would say you make a longer run, but maybe you get less than half the fire hydrants.
Oh, I see what you're saying. I was trying to figure out longer run where. So under the fire code, 500 feet is the radius on a fire hydrant.
I understand
So
that.
that would be the longest you could go. We would have to sit down and look at the design and then decide where we would have kind of higher concentration or density of housing that would receive protection, and then just maybe skip one in those areas where it is dense housing.
But in theory, what your decision that makes, because the code is, you can tell some people, sorry, you don't get a fire hydrant. So now they have no coverage, and I understand the density requirement, but I presume we have latitude to talk about that from a city standpoint to make sure we have their coverage as opposed to no coverage.
Well, you've got no coverage for all of them right
Well, I
now.
understand that, you have no coverage for all, but as you think about, that's why I say you think about, when you get out further as opposed to, in terms of doing that. Otherwise, the probability of us getting another contract or another grant is slim to none for probably another decade, right?
No, actually, applications, they're going to open up the applications here pretty soon for the 2020 CDBG. So this project could be continued in 2020.
Well, you've got more experience than I do in these things. What do you think? That's a high probability or low?
Yeah. Well, under the CDBG, that's the gentleman's agreement in this region. So every entity is there's a kind of a maximum amount that you could apply for to ensure that there are enough funds for all of the participating entities.
Yeah.
So if you time it outright every 2 years, you're eligible to get funding. Now, how it prioritizes in that you could get first year funding, second year funding, based on what those priorities are. Usually, if it's first time water, first time wastewater, it gets higher priority, gets funded first. But you would probably, I would say, probably get funding in 20. Was this first year or second year when it went up?
17 first year.
It was first year, so you get first year again. So we could be having the same conversation 2 years from now.
The council, Mayor.
Yes, sir.
TDA has cut. I'm the Jerry Carvajal. I'm the director of Water Ticket Services for Ground Works. I'm the assistant administrator for this project. TDA has cut the gentleman's agreement. So now everybody's competing against each other. But in the 17 to 18 funding cycle, there were no federal funds to fund all the applicants that were submitted. And the applications are due on February 7th this year. And water is still first priority as set by the Regional Review Committee of the Rio Grande COG. And application amounts, the amount you can apply for hasn't changed. It's still $275,000. So you could apply for the same project. The groundwork has already been done. The surveys have already there, so you can still use the same survey.
So it would just be a matter of adding the extra ones.
So if we reduce this and we basically end up doing half the hydrants, our application that we would submit in February would be for the other half.
So that's Ward 4.
Remember, there's the load and mod requirement. And so if you're doing the projects, you have to look for those areas within the city whose median household income is below. So the city of Alpine as a whole is not eligible, so you couldn't do like citywide. They have to be specific block areas.
It's the Ward 4 area. We're gonna take, we have a choice.
Any more discussion? Okay. All those in favor, raise your right hand. Opposed, like sign. Motion carries. So that's going to be to reduce it to 20 or whatever the requirement for 210,000.
Yeah. Mayor, the next item is to approve the recommendation from Frank Spencer and Associates to reject the one bid received for the City of Alpine Brewster County Water System Improvement Contract that was received on August 28, 2018.
Mr. Mayor, I move that we reject the bid from Hack Construction for the bid package associated with the water system. Texas contract.
Is there a second? Motion been made and second. Any discussion? Okay, all those in favor of rejecting it, raise your right hand. Opposed, like sign. Motion carries. City Manager.
Mayor, we are requesting the authorization of a resolution to submit 2 applications for TCQ Solid Waste Grant Program, one for a technical study and the other for improvements for the Healthlanders Recycling Center.
Yes, sir. Mr. Mayor. I propose that we adopt a resolution authorizing the submission of 2 applications for grant funding for TCEQ solid waste program, solid waste grant program for technical study and other improvements for the Healthlanders Recycling Center.
Okay, motion's made in second. Okay, discussion.
Mayor, if I may.
Yes, ma'am.
This is also one of those funds that passes through the Council of Governments. Our first application for technical study is to look at long-term sustainability of the recycling center when it comes to cost and feasibility to utilize the recycling center to create an economic development center. The recommendation from the COG was that we submit this as a basic study and then use this to submit this to the Economic Development Administration for a much larger funding type feasibility study that could take place later on. The second application, we have not decided yet what it will be. We have had conversations, like this is another one of those funds that at the state level, the local portion continues to be reduced every time those legislators get together. And we'll really look at it to determine the cost benefit analysis. If we're only going to be limited to say 13,000 in an application, or that's the average award amount, it may not be beneficial for us to submit it because our cost to manage the paperwork, put the application together, do the reporting would exceed the benefit of the grant. But we wanted to get this through because we do have a short timeline, and between now and when the applications are due, we can do the rest of the analysis on that to determine which ones we would actually submit.
Do you have a timeline on them?
They are due September 28th, 22nd.
2 weeks from now.
If our application was to be approved, what is the city funding about to support it beyond what I call your online?
There is no match required, but it will not pay for salaries, so it has to be stuff.
So it's your allocation.
It has to be stuff.
In the scientific term, yeah.
That's a technical term.
Technical term, yeah.
Industry term.
Stuff.
Is there any more discussion? Seeing none? Okay, all those in favor, raise your right hand. All those opposed, like sign. Motion carries. Okay, let's move on to item 17, City Manager.
Mayor, this is, and council, this is phase 3 funding for the SCADA. If you'll recall, several months ago, the estimate that we were given was 50,000. Council approved the allocation of 50,000, and we got the original bill was actually 98,000. And in discussion with the provider, they were able to reduce it to 85 to include travel.
Mr. Mayor, yes, sir. I propose that council approve the additional funds in the amount of $35,000 from the Water Department Reserve Fund to complete the implementation of the SCADA system.
Okay, motion made second. Any discussion? Okay, all those in favor of those, like sign, motion carries. We get the scale. Okay, on item 18, we also had moved, yep, I believe to that.
Yes. In your packets in the discussion section were the final 5 appraisals that have been approved by council for the city hall, the fire station, the airport, the animal shelter, and the gas department. And under this item, you'll kind of see the list of the properties and where we're at with the appraisals. So we can have just one discussion.
So, Mr. Mayor,
Yes, sir.
I move that we authorize the city manager to contract with Superior Land Services in the amount of $42,000 that would be taken from the remaining general fund for this fiscal year. The contract with Superior Land Services for the remaining city-owned properties facilities.
Second. Motion made and second. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Raise your right hand. Opposed, like sign. Motion carries.
It's a long night, right?
Oh.
No, just so.
Item number 19, city manager.
I am actually going to turn this item over to Megan. This item is to approve a proposed bid options for the 1824 Alpine TxDOT Aviation Taxiway Ramp Project.
She's been awfully silent today.
I know. Exciting. So the city went out for proposals for the big project for the airport, which is reconstruction of the taxiways and the ramp. We did receive several bids. Unfortunately, at this point, we have a couple options. The state is required to award a contract within 60 days of the bid. We are lucky enough that the federal government has passed down a lot of money under an omnibus act or bill. So we are actually on that list for some of those funds. The problem is because TxDOT has to give by their statutes and laws a response to one of the bids in 60 days, it puts us in a bind. So currently, based on all the bids, we basically have two options. So the first option is to go with the base bid and everything included, which would cost the city an additional $23,000. That would be our portion of the 10%. The second option is to go with the base bid and then to remove one of the alt deletes is to lower the asphalt from 4 inches to 3 inches. So the whole process for this could be mute and not matter if we get the omnibus, but if we don't get the omnibus funding, we have to have a decision for TxDOT to award the bid. So if we award the base with the delete with being the 4 inches of asphalt to 3 inches, the city doesn't have to come up with any additional funding. If we want to continue with the 4 inches for the runways and the ramp, or the taxiways and the ramp, it would be an additional $23,000 that the city would have to come up with. So Rick had followed up with a few questions. The reason why the asphalt is set at 4 inches is that is what the TxDOT and the engineers have found to be a good depth for our runways and taxiways based on what is currently present on 119. The rest of the asphalt is 2 inches. If you remember a few years ago, we invested quite a bit of money in some crack seals. 119 has not cracked yet. It's got a couple wear and tear spots, but nothing compared to the 2 inches that you've seen on the taxiways and the ramp. So they proposed the 4 inches because of the sustainability. It does tend to last longer. The point of this project is to reconstruct, to make it sustainable and to last longer than the current conditions that are there. The 3 inch is kind of like a hit and miss. The 3 inches, we're not sure if it will last like the 4 inch, but it's got to do better than what there's currently there, which is 2 inch. One of the other items that Rick had brought up was the concrete. There is a section of the ramp that is completely concrete. That is for the heavier planes. Under this, currently we're not touching the concrete. We would just be reconstructing the asphalt around it. But if we get beyond this, that's basically money that the federal government's going to give the city to be able to complete this project. So tonight's decision is just to allow TxDOT Aviation to move forward with their 60-day requirement. As of the 30th, I believe, or the 31st when this was typed up, we were at day 30.
There's still another week and a half before the federal government or TxDOT Aviation will have word on if we're going to receive any of that funding. We don't want to have it cut short and miss out on this whole project. So it could be a moot point, but either way, we need to give direction to TxDOT for awarding the bid.
I've got a question for the pilot, the aviator here. Is 3 inches adequate?
We need to make a motion.
Yeah, you're gonna do a motion. Yeah, okay.
Any more? That's it.
I think the motion just needs to state whether you're motioning to go with option 1 or option 1.
So I propose that we approve bid option number 2, which would add the additional $23,000 as contingency in the event it's required to do the aviation taxiway ramp project.
That's with 3.
That is the 4 inch.
That's option 1.
That's option 1.
So option 1. Additional $23,000.
Option 1.
Like I said, my question to all second.
Okay.
Option.
Yes.
So motion's been made and it's been seconded. Any discussion?
So now the discussion and really looking at it, my concern is 4 inches is going to be better. It's the longevity issue. I hate to see us go through this process because I thought they got it wired last time. You know, we're going to have to redo the taxiway ramp areas sooner than we would like to. As you recall, council approved nearly $200,000 a couple of years ago to go through the emergency fix to fill in the cracks. So in my view, the $23,000 is a wise allocation of funding, and if we're fortunate, we may not have to. I think we'd rather get them lined up so they're ready to move forward in place. I think probably the other thing, you know, our big consumer of fuel is the bigger aircraft, particularly the jets. And while I was one who was looking to say, well, we certainly like more asphalt, I mean, the more concrete in there, so you can park the bigger aircraft, particularly during the summer. I've done a lot of looking around at airports that don't have a lot of concrete, and they're using steel plates as a contingency to spread the load out so they can bring in the bigger aircraft. That's helped them a lot. And in my view, unless someone wants to throw us a bunch of money for concrete, I think the steel plates is probably the way to go, as if we're going to get more rich asphalt. Really, that's my view.
You answered my question. 4 inches.
Okay. So it's option 1.
Option 1, thank you.
Okay.
Mayor, if I may.
Yes, ma'am.
Megan, do you have an idea of where the additional 23,000 is going to come out of?
So currently there is no reserve that could cover this under the airport. Because this is the end of the fiscal year and it would hit the beginning of the next fiscal year, it would have to come back to council for approval to be transferred out of another fund.
So is that something that we'll do at the September 18th meeting, or do we have to wait until the next fiscal year?
I would prefer to wait till TxDOT Aviation tells us one way or the other. There's no point in putting it back on the agenda if we don't need to.
Spend 23,000 extra, you might save a whole bunch more down the road.
You will.
Yeah. That's obvious. So,
Any more discussion? All those in favor, raise your right hand. Opposed, like sign. Motion carries. Option 1. Thank you. And we'll go to item 20. We'll start with on the right side. You have been.
What?
It's a long meeting and that y'all came out.
Thanks for coming, great meeting. See you next 2 weeks.
Thanks for everybody being here. Actually, board 3 is well represented as usual. Thanks for coming. And everybody, thank you. And see you in a couple weeks.
I just wanted to thank everybody for coming. We've had a good turnout. Very good reports.
It's great to have everyone here. Too bad so many people left, so thank you all for sticking around.
Thank y'all for being here this evening. We've had a lot of business to take care of, which we accomplished, and also thank goodness we're getting some rains.
We
So you have a motion to go into executive session.
Yes.
Sir, I propose that pursuant to Texas Government Code, section 55-1.071, consultation with attorney, and section 55-1.074, personal matters, we will go into executive session.
I miss. Got motion. Paper, like, rules like sign, go to executive session. Yes. Yeah. Okay.